Welcome to the Harbortech Academy, and this is the second mix in the hazard identification. So this is part two. In part one, we actually looked at definitions, what hazard groups are and how they apply to the hospitality industry. In this mix, we're actually going to look at risk assessment and actually taking those hazard groups and using them for analysis and looking at the hierarchy list of control measures, which is a tool that's used to actually minimize or reduce hazards within the kitchen. Let's go. In this mix, we're actually going to learn about the different hazard categories that we use for risk assessment. We're actually going to look at risk assessment, and then I'm going to take you through the hierarchy list of control measures that most establishments use. In this mix today, we're very much looking at risk assessment. So once you've identified a hazard, you need to be able to put it into one of the categories before you can do the risk analysis. So we're going to have a look. First is physical or environmental. Examples of this could be fluctuating temperatures in a food production area, which may lead to stress, headaches, dizziness, or rashes. Chemical, cleaning agents or other chemicals which could be absorbed into the skin, cause a burn, blindness, or maybe inhaled. Psychological, these kind of hazards affect the mental well-being of an individual, could be excess heat or sound within the kitchen. Next one, radiation. This could be exposure from microwaves, ultraviolet waves, or x-rays. Using equipment which isn't designed very well could actually be a hazard within the kitchen. And finally, that biological hazard in food safety and keeping our food nice and clean. So here is the basic risk assessment. So we start off with identifying hazards. Then you actually look at associated risks. Then finally, we're going to look at control measures to eliminate or minimize. And remember, sometimes you cannot completely eliminate a problem, but you can minimize it. And then finally is that monitoring and reviewing the control measures to make sure they are effective, and if they're not, changing something to make them effective. So we've looked at risk assessment. Now this next tool is called the hierarchy list of controls. And in essence what it is looking at a step from step 1 through to step 6. Now in step 1, elimination, if we already have good work practices and people working with us that are removing hazards from the workplace and there are no problems, you don't have to go past elimination. Now you'll notice under here, if this is not practicable, go to number 2. So if we haven't been able to eliminate a hazard, then we go to number 2 in the hierarchy, which is the substitution. So we may replace a manual process with an automatic process. And an example of that is deep fryers. Quite a dangerous thing to actually drain them off and clean them. We might actually bring in a specialized company that come in with specialized equipment to clean them, and that will actually minimize or reduce the risk of someone getting hurt. Again, if we're moving down the hierarchy that elimination and substitution hasn't worked, then we're looking at isolation. So we might be installing guards onto machines to make sure that people are protected and also trained, which is important. If that's not working, and at number 4, this is where the whole hospitality establishment and all the workers would be working together too. This isn't working. How do we redesign the task so that it is safer? And then once that's been done, the administration of making sure that there are policies and procedures in place, that people are trained and know what to do in these situations with these particular hazards, and also making sure that everyone has the personal protective equipment and that everyone is using it. So really, this is a tool that's used in not just hospitality industry across to minimize the risk or eliminating risk, from elimination through to re-engineering. And if it's working at number 1, you don't need to work through to 2, 3, and 4. If at this point you're thinking, I don't really understand how these hazard groups and how the risk assessment is going to work, never fear, because we are actually going to do risk assessment in class so that you can actually apply the knowledge that you've learned over the last 2 mixes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time at the Harper Tech Academy.